Joe Pyfer let us down last night at UFC Vegas 86, but guess what? Volkanovski won't let us down this week at UFC 298. We'll get into the recap and the predictions next.
Broadcasting live from an undisclosed location. This is the Community MMA with your host, Chris Cross.
Yes! Yes! Let's go, baby!
Dana White privilege.
Let's go, baby! Baby! Baby!
What a night it was at UFC Vegas 86 last night. And when I say what a night, it wasn't pretty at all. In fact, it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. Jack Hermansson down 0-2 after the first two rounds. Somehow comes back and wins the next three rounds to get the unanimous decision victory. We headed into the big three at 6-4 and fell to 6-7. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So Jack Hermansson stole it last night. In my opinion, it was Joe Pyfer's to win. If he could have just closed out round three, he wins that fight. And he's not used to going 5 rounds. So you knew that was going to be a problem. And then Pyfer is probably looking back at this fight like, I should have just gassed out in the first round and tried to get the finish. Because there wasn't the power from Hermansson in the first to be able to keep up with Pyfer. Pyfer rocked him a few times. You could see the look on Hermansson's face like, oh gosh, I don't want no part of that. But then when the power game slowed down for Pyfer toward the middle, the end of round 3, Hermansson just picked him apart and took the lead in significant strikes at the end of the third and just pulled away throughout the rest of the fight. It was crazy. So you had some other good fights on this card. Let's start with the co-main event. Dan Ige versus Andre Fili. We took a chance on Andre Fili, and that certainly didn't go our way. You get the feeling Ige's got that power, man. Like at any time, if he can get inside, I mean, he's got a reach disadvantage and all that, but if he gets inside and connects, that height advantage and reach advantage is going to disappear quickly. And Fili really trying to maintain his distance here. You see the game plan. He's doing a lot of reaching on that jab. Now he takes a jab from Ige. Oh my gosh, big right hand for Ige. It's over. Are you serious? What? Ige just rocked Andre Fili, man. We're down to 6-6. Oh my God. It's going to come down to the main event. We're 0-2 in the big three. Freaking Dan 50K Ige is 18-7, man. And that's why he's ranked. Yeah, so that didn't go our way, right? We lost in fight 3. Ihor got the job done against newcomer Robert Brzezinski, and I don't know what I was thinking about. I could tell in the walkout that I made the wrong decision. So we missed the final 3. We're 6-4 going in, 6-7 at the end. But before we get into the full breakdown, one fight that did go our way was RoboCop, and he got the KO over Tavares early in round 3. Rodriguez dominating in all categories, but he's still got to finish strong here in round 3. He's got his bounce back a little bit here. Oh, these guys are trading right now. Okay, RoboCop, finish him now. Ooh, RoboCop's going for it, man. And he better finish him or he's going to be tired. Tavares is fleeing. Come on. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Tavares is in trouble. Finish him. Finish him. Finish him. Let's go. Yes. Yes. Yes, baby. That's what I'm freaking talking about, bro. Boy, and Tavares, look at that. Man, and he was doing fine until that. And RoboCop just had enough. What I'm freaking talking about, bro. What I'm freaking talking about, bro. Are you serious? Are you serious? Serious?
Christopher, then you know what? Then maybe that you've got a problem because you've got a problem because you've got a problem. You've got a problem because.
I guess we had the volume turned down. But nonetheless, we're looking at last night, right? We finished 6-7, lost the final 3 fights. Not a good look. Not a good look at all. Dropped our first main event. We're down to 3-1 and a dismal 26-22 overall. You know, but as bad as it's been the last 3 weeks, we haven't had a winning night the last 3 weeks, but that first week going 8-3 has been good enough to keep us above 500 in the overall, because if we were under 500, it would be straight misery. So thankfully, that's not the case. Thankfully, that's not the case. So we'll just have to continue moving on and hope that we don't start second guessing our predictions. Because if we do, then we're in trouble. And we got 3 of the 4 done for 298, so at least those are done in the bag. And now when we do the other 9 fights, because there's 12 fights total, we cannot second guess ourselves. We just got to keep making predictions. And this has been the biggest worry over the last 3 years, where we've just dominated in fight picks. It seems like, you know, there's been stretches where we're 8-5, 9-4 every single week. That's hard to maintain. And we finally got a little adversity to overcome in the predictions, and I welcome it, because we haven't been here just yet, or at least in a while, since we've been tracking them. That first year we started, first 2 or 3 years we did predictions, we weren't tracking anything. And then I saw some other YouTubers and other people start tracking the numbers throughout the year, and I'm like, you know, that's a good idea. That's a great idea. That's what we need to start doing, and see how this thing works out. But, you know, to fall to 6-7 this week, the first losing night of the year after back-to-back 6-6 weeks, and we're 18-19 in the last 37 fights, that's a serious problem. And we got to get it corrected. And how do you do that? You move forward. You start to look at next week, UFC 298. We have we have 3 of those predictions done. We're going to get into right now. And it's a big card. I mean, the co-main event is now Cejudo versus Merab Dvalishvili, and we haven't done that prediction yet. So that's the only one we're not going to get into today. We're going to get into the main event with Volkanovski and Topuria. We got Whitaker versus Costa in fight 3, and Neal versus Gary in fight 4. So we're getting into all those predictions today. So let's just start from the bottom. Let's start in fight 4 and jump this thing off with Jeff Neal versus Ian Gary. Check it out. In the welterweight division at UFC 298, you got Jeff Neal coming in at 14-5, taking on Ian Gary, a perfect 13-0. This guy is ridiculous. He's 4 inches taller at 6'3". He's just 26, not even in the prime window just yet. Jeff Neal, 33. He's exiting the prime window, but he's still there. Both guys 75-inch reach. Jeff Neal, left-handed, southpaw. Ian Gary, opposite stance, right-handed. Both guys very, very active, right? 6.7 significant strikes per minute for Ian Gary, 5.2 per minute for Jeff Neal. So Ian Gary's got a slight advantage there, although it's very close. Neither guy really likes to get takedowns. They might get one like every 5 or 6 rounds. Now, hands of steel with Jeff Neal, 87% takedown defense. He lost to Shavkat Rakhmonov, but who doesn't, by submission. He beat Vicente Luque before that in 2022. That was a real deal, Vicente Luque, right? Beat him by KO. He beat Santiago Ponzinibbio by split decision. So he's got 2 big wins in the last 3 fights, and really you can't discount him for the submission against Shavkat. That came in round 3 and nearly got to the end of the fight. Now, Ian Gary, 69% takedown defense, even more of a reason why we're not going to see takedowns. He's never lost, obviously. He's undefeated. Beat Neil Magny by decision. Beat D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez by KO. KO'd Song Keenan and beat Gabe Green. But do all these add up to a victory for Ian Gary? Ian Gary is going to continue progressing up the ladder. He's going to continue moving up. And at some point, he's going to meet his match. But that's not this fight. As good as Jeff Neal is, and as big of a test this is going to be, I think Ian Gary pulls this thing out in the 3rd round, maybe gets the finish. I'm not too sure about it. But I do know one thing. Ian Gary is going to pull this thing out to move to 14-0. He's just a better fighter. I'm a little worried about the activity of Jeff Neal. I didn't realize it was over 5 per minute. That's well above the UFC average. So he's going to, they're going to throw hands back and forth. This is a great fight at UFC 298. But Ian Gary, a.k.a. the future, is going to pull this thing out. 70% takedown defense, 6.7 significant strikes per minute. Forget about it. He's moving to 14-0, in my opinion, here in the welterweight division at UFC 298. See, and the side factor with this fight is they've been giving me too. People have been giving Ian Gary a hard time with all the WAG stuff in terms of his wife and all that. And I just bring that up to let you know that Ian Gary is coming in trying to show out. Pay-per-view setting. People are teasing him. Then you get into his family. He's going to be, if you're Jeff Neal, this is not the fight that you want. To fight a guy with a chip on his shoulder. Jeff Neal say the right things and welcome this, but I'm just telling you, this is not the fight you want, Jeff Neal. Because Ian Gary is coming in with a chip on his shoulder. He's pissed. He's got something to prove. And when people start talking about your woman, that could cause you to act in a certain way. And normally in a fight setting, it may not be the best to lose your emotions. But I think in this one, it's going to allow Ian Gary to get a big finish. And it's hard to finish Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal fights well in big fights. So look for that. But as we march forward, right in fight 3, this is just an absolute monster of a fight. Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. Because Whittaker sliding, he's got something to prove. Paulo Costa, we haven't seen him in a while, and he suffered 2 losses in a row to Adesanya and I think Marvin Vettori. We'll hear it in the prediction in a minute. But he's still 14-2. He's by no means finished. By no means finished. But does that mean I'm predicting him? Let's get to it right now. In the middleweight division at UFC 298, you got Robert Whittaker taking on Paulo Costa, and which is obviously a title eliminator fight. Neither guy can really afford to lose this fight. Robert Whittaker 25-7, 2-1 favorite. Paulo Costa, the Brazilian, in case you forgot, this guy's 14-2. I'm surprised by that record. I didn't realize he was 14-2. Wow. Costa's 6'1", 1 inch taller than Whittaker. He's 32. Whittaker's 33. Okay. Whittaker's got a 2-inch reach advantage. Both guys stand right-handed. Paulo Costa is more active. 6.5 significant strikes per minute to 4.5 for Whittaker. So if you say, hey, this fight goes 3 rounds, you're looking at a 30 significant strike advantage for Paulo Costa. That's crazy. Takedown game really non-existent for both fighters. Whittaker will get one like every 4 rounds. Costa will get one every 6. So it's likely that there's no takedowns in this fight. But if there are, Whittaker has an 82% takedown defense. Costa 79. So even more likely not to have any takedowns in this fight. Now, Robert Whittaker has lost 2 of the last 3 to Adesanya and Duplessis. Former champ and current champ. So might as well wipe the slate clean there. He did beat Marvin Vettori by decision and beat Kelvin Gastelum by decision. Now, Paulo Costa was supposed to fight Khamzat Chimaev, but he ended up not doing it, right? He had to pull out. But he did beat Luke Rockhold in his last fight by decision, and his only 2 losses in his career after starting 13-0 was to Marvin Vettori decision and KO Adesanya. So we really haven't seen Paulo Costa in a while. And I think that's why he's the underdog. Because when you look at the numbers, as I usually do, and I usually go with the numbers unless I have a gut instinct, that's why this prediction is very tough. But you look at the numbers, Paulo Costa lands 2 more significant strikes per minute. 30 over the course of 15 minutes. How is Robert Whittaker going to deal with that? Robert Whittaker, to me, is going to have to get a finish here. The first round is going to tell us everything. And Robert Whittaker has not performed well. He's gotten KO'd, but against the champion and the former champ. Robert Whittaker once ruled this division. It's a whole different division now with Khamzat Chimaev in the mix and Bo Nickel on the rise and all these guys. So Robert Whittaker cannot, if he loses this fight, the career is in jeopardy in terms of ever fighting for a title again. I can tell you that right now. So his back is against the wall. But on the other hand, Paulo Costa is getting tired of hearing the noise. He pulled out of the Khamzat fight. He lost 2 fights in a row to Vettori and Adesanya. That wasn't a good look. This guy's had a lot of time to train. And I think he's going to come in serious in this fight. And he's 1 inch taller. He's given up 2 inches in reach, but he's more active. Man, I tell you what, forget the odds here. I'm going to have to go with Paulo Costa. As much as I like Robert Whittaker, I'm going to have to go with Paulo Costa to outstrike Whittaker, avoid the KO, and win this thing by decision. Look for round 3 to be ridiculous. As both guys know they can't lose, and it's likely 1-1 going into round 3. I think Paulo Costa pulls it out. He's got more of an upside right now. We know what Whittaker can do. Paulo Costa has a chip on his shoulder, and I think that chip is going to carry him to a victory. He's going to move to 15-2 with the decision win. In my opinion, he's going to lead by 20 to 30 significant strikes to move to 15-2 here, middleweight division, UFC 298. Wow, that even surprised me. I'm sitting here watching it like, yeah, we got Robert Whittaker. But I said Paulo Costa. And see, this is the thing y'all got to realize that happens from time to time, is it's very close in their predictions, and I don't always remember who I went with. So we gotta stick with Paulo Costa here, and he's got a chip on his shoulder. I think Robert Whittaker's back against the wall. He's got him. Both of these guys got a chip on their shoulder. They got something to fight for, and the fact that both of them do makes for a highly, highly interesting situation here in the middleweight division and in Fight 3. So look forward to that one. Paulo Costa is a guy that's walking around at 200, 205, and he's going to get down to 185 and back up to 200 by fight time. So he's a big dude, and it's going to be interesting. And Robert Whittaker's reeling right now. That's the bottom line. Then we get to the main event. In the main event, Volkanovski trying to rebound from the KO loss to Islam Makhachev. He took that on short notice. He's taken this on quick turnaround time, not against the guy in Topuria that you want to do that against. But Volkanovski has been unstoppable in the featherweight division. Will that run continue? If not, Topuria grabs the belt and we have a new champion who will probably reign for a while. And then you get Max Holloway back in the mix. So I think there's going to be a lot of people rooting for Topuria. But that doesn't mean Volkanovski is just going to lay down by any means. Let's get into that prediction right now. In the featherweight division, for the featherweight division title, you got Alexander the Great Volkanovski coming in at 26-3, dominant in this division, but taking on a good rising challenger in Ilia Topuria, who comes in at 14-0. So let's get right into it. Topuria 1 inch taller at 5'7", but he's given up 2 inches in reach to Volkanovski, 71-69. Both guys stand right-handed. In terms of activity, it's all Volkanovski, 6.2 significant strikes per minute to 4.4. In terms of the takedown game, that's Volkanovski. Actually, it's very close. It leans Topuria, but both guys land about 2 takedowns over the course of 3 rounds. Topuria, though, 92% takedown defense. Volkanovski, 70% takedown defense. So both guys really well-rounded, very close in takedown average. Topuria is going to defend a lot of takedowns here, but even if it stays standing, that still leans toward Volkanovski. Now, Volkanovski has went up to face Islam Makhachev for the belt, right? In the last fight, though, he got KO'd.
He got knocked back down to earth in that one, but he took it on late notice. Prior to that, he beat Yair Rodriguez, held on to the belt by KO, lost to Islam Makhachev by decision when he was well prepared, and beat Max Holloway time and time again by decision. The one thing you see with Volkanovski is he's a high output guy. He lands a lot of significant strikes, especially in featherweight division fights. Now, Topuria, on the other hand, is undefeated, right? He's 14-0. Now, he's coming off wins over Josh Emmett, decision. He submitted Bryce Mitchell. That was a big one. Beat Jai Herbert by KO and Bryce Hall by KO. And this is a tough one for me because you want to think in the featherweight division, Volkanovski is unstoppable, and he is. But how will he react? How will he come back after being dominated by Islam Makhachev? Yeah, that was a lightweight fight. Yeah, he's going up 10 pounds to 155. But now he's been KO'd. He's been brought back down to earth. How much will that weigh on a guy's mind? The next fight after you get KO'd is always your toughest fight. And that might be why Sean Strickland fell to Jared Cannonier after getting, KO'd by Pereira. So if the door is open for a guy to win the belt in the featherweight division, it's certainly here with Ilia Topuria. But I can't go against Volkanovski. I mean, the guy is still great. He's got it in his name. And as good as Topuria is, and as much as I believe he could snatch the belt here, I'm still rocking with Alexander Volkanovski. The guy is too good on the feet. Topuria is going to have to break through that takedown defense of 70% by Volkanovski and land some takedowns and control it that way if he's going to win the fight. He's not going to stand up and strike with Volk. If he does, I have to see it to believe it. So I'm leaning towards Volkanovski to win this fight, but it's not going to be easy. 48-47, unanimous decision, maybe split decision, but it's going to be 3 rounds to 2 on all judges' scorecards. It's going to be that close of a fight. But in my opinion, Volkanovski wins to move to 27-3 here, featherweight division, UFC 298. Yeah, there you have it, man. The pick is in, and we covered all the bases in that one. Volk coming off the KO loss. Ilia Topuria, number 6, has a big opportunity. But at the end of the day, I just think Volkanovski's too much in this division. Until he falls, how do you pick against him? Like if you're making picks and you got to get past the emotions of liking a fighter, maybe I like Ilia Topuria and think he could get the job done. It's impossible to go against Volkanovski in this situation based off previous experience. It's just that simple. Now, as we keep it moving, I'm reading a little bit of the news today, and I missed the press conference last night with Dana White, but obviously he's got into UFC 300 because that's what everybody wants to know right now. And as I told you, the UFC is struggling to find a main event for this thing. John Jones even saying he's been offered. I mean, that ought to tell you right there that the UFC is going to have to pay some big money to secure the main event for UFC 300. And as I told you earlier in the week, it's either they already have it and they're holding it, which is fine because then those fighters know and they're already getting prepared, or they're going to have to come out of the pockets and offer someone some big money more than their contract. And I think that's more likely to happen. That's why Pereira versus Aspinall I would think would be a possibility, but those guys kind of need to know sooner than later that they're fighting. They got to know. And there's still Hamza out there, and whether he can get a visa, I don't know, but there's a lot of potential for the main event. But we're still waiting. And we're going to continue to wait. Now, as we jump into the Q&A, Hamza always in the news. Patrick Scott, YT, saying, bruh, Hamza has no cardio. Usman took the fight on short notice, and it should have been a draw, if not a Usman victory. And I think he goes on to say something like if it goes 5 rounds, and I'm paraphrasing, that Usman would have won the fight. And yeah, but you got to remember, Hamza was injured in the fight. It's not the cardio, it was the injury. Let's be real. And a little back and forth between him and Real, Recognize Real. Says, Clown of the Year award goes to you. If the fight went 5 rounds, you can't assume Usman would have won because Hamza was applying the pressure. And no, Hamza did not face a washed-up Usman. Usman is still as tough as he was 2 years ago. Stop being a loser who can't admit Hamza won fair and square. Hamza does not have cardio, ? And we're going to have to see Hamza in a 4 or 5 round fight to really know. And I fear that it's going to look like Joe Pyfer did last night, where the inexperience will cause him a fight. But, you just hope Hamza gets the finish and don't have to worry about it. That'll be the easy way out of that. But yeah, Hamza's always in the news. At Leland says, haha, yep, that's how I feel about it also, in terms of Hamza being the real champ. But the big wigs want to milk every guy for what they can get. So they will hold it off for however long. And that stinks. And you couldn't have said it better. I mean, it's exactly what the UFC will do. And on some level, you can't blame them. But it just stinks as a Hamza fan, having to wait and wait and wait. It just stinks. At Odd 152 says, Jofer gonna win. Yeah, it didn't go our way. Then you got a smiley face there from Vasi Cash 2000 with our prediction over Ihor losing. Of course, that didn't happen. Then you got JH Wood 50 saying Ige Mania. Yeah, Ige got the job done last night. In terms of Sean Strickland going off on Sneeko the other day, at Justice Law kind of came at me and says it wasn't crazy, it was weak. I wish Sean did it without gloves or just wraps. By the way, you too old to mention Sneeko on a video. Grow up more. See, you would expect to get some type of emotional reaction out of me, right? But I'm not a millennial. I'm from the old school. You could say, say what you want. I could take it. Take one across the chin. But please believe it, you better be ready when I come back at you. Because I'm from the old school. I don't get all emotional. I clap back. But in the Q&A, you got a right to make statements. Plain and simple. That's your right. So that's where the comments are coming from. Always on Hamza, trying to figure out what's going on. We're getting laughed at for last night's ridiculous 6-7 record, as we should. I'm laughing at my own darn self. I mean, it's just insane the way it turned out last night. Ridiculous and embarrassing. Plain and simple. Pro Adam says in the chat room, Volk is up for a rude awakening. I know a lot of people feel like that. EQ, Topuria bettors have no clue what's coming. You also say great cash on Michael Johnson, who's an absolute beast in the lightweight division. I told you, always hard to stop. He should have got the finish last night, though. Still a little disappointed in that, but the bottom line is a win is a win. And his record's not the greatest at 23-19, but when you look at his resume, he fights the best to the end and loses by decision when he does. That's just the bottom line. We'll be back this week. We got to get into Henry Cejudo and Merab Dvalishvili. You got Anthony Hernandez in Fight 5. That's another big fight. So we got a lot more to discuss, but we wanted to get, 3 fights done in the main event. So we're rocking and rolling to begin the week. Super Bowl Sunday tonight. About to get off here and watch it. By the time some of you listen to this on the Spotifys and the Apple Musics and the podcast that way, it's going to be over. And people keep saying, Chris Cross, who you rocking with, man? Who you got in the Super Bowl? And my answer is always the same. Ladies and gentlemen, my Super Bowl pick to win tonight, Taylor Swift. The Swifties will rise tonight. And the bigger question is, for me, the bigger question tonight, the biggest prop bet, if it even exists, I can't imagine it doesn't. Will Taylor Swift show up at halftime with Usher? My fiance and I debated this on the way home. She says no, Usher doesn't need Taylor Swift. I say yes, because you can always increase the amount of people that like you. And I guarantee the teeny boppers aren't listening to Usher right now. He put out a new album just this morning. Perfect timing, right? On purpose. Why not bring Taylor Swift out for it? I don't care if Taylor Swift just comes out and says, yeah, I got bad blood. It just sings like 30 seconds and then dips. That would set everything on fire at the Super Bowl. So I'm expecting to see Taylor Swift at halftime. Call it a long shot, I don't know. But I'm expecting Taylor Swift to make a surprise appearance, a cameo, if you will, tonight at the Super Bowl. But again, a lot of you will listen to this after the Super Bowl. So usually have more people tune in after the live stream than during. And that's cool. So we'll see if I'm right. We'll see. But that's my big prediction for the Super Bowl. Taylor Swift shows up with Usher at halftime. They're making it sound like, oh, she's not going to be there. And then last minute, oh, she's coming. That's all to sidetrack you. What do you mean Taylor Swift isn't coming to the Super Bowl? Are you crazy? Celebrities don't miss an opportunity like this to be on live TV when the whole country is watching. And because of Taylor Swift, this will probably be the most watched Super Bowl of all time. Because when you have figures like a Taylor Swift, just like McGregor, people are going to tune in because they love you, and people are going to tune in because they don't, and they want to see you lose. And at the end of the day, that makes for the best event of all time. That I can promise you. Tonight's Super Bowl will be the most watched Super Bowl ever. Remember I said it. For now, this is your boy Chris Cross. As always, hope you have a great day and God bless. Peace.